Have a moment of silence and reflection, please, before we start. Okay, thank you very much. And I'm looking around the room, and I believe everyone's here. Everyone's familiar with the process, but just as a reminder, the agendas are on the back table and other supporting documents with what we're going to be doing tonight. If any of you cannot hear, raise your hand and we'll try to speak into the microphones better. And now we'll try to get started and officially call the meeting to order and say welcome to all of you. Glad you're here and appreciate your being here. And item number 3 on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag to my right. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to talk about number 4 on the agenda, the consideration of the agenda before we officially approve it. And somewhere I just read, Mr. Hewitt, that you're going to request that we delete number 9 and number 10.
Yes, sir. Since item number 10 is the commissioner's agenda item, but Mr. Evans isn't able to join us tonight, I'd recommend that 10 be removed from the agenda also. But it is the commissioner's agenda item. Just if y'all want to talk about it, you're going to be doing it without
David,
technician.
as a matter of fact, we have had quite a bit of input from the public and some really good input, and we have thought we were just going to change a word or two, but it ended up being several sentences, so Heather will get the opportunity in the next week or so to help me put it together where we can see exactly what the changes are, so that it's we want to, when we do it, we want to do it right, and Tim was actually helped some yesterday, so it's but it's a good idea to push it back another month.
You're talking about number 10.
Number 10, yes, sir.
Okay, so, all right, assuming we're going to consider passing and approving the agenda as presented, except for number 9 and number 10, which will be removed. Is there a motion accordingly?
I'll make that motion.
All right.
I'll second it then.
All right, Mr. Brown made it and Mr. Smith seconded it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Then unanimously, we have removed number 9 and number 10 from the agenda, and we'll move forward with number 5, which is a consideration of passing the minutes for March the 31st and April the 19th. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from our special meeting on March 31st as well as our regular meeting on April 19th.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor say aye.
May I make a correction? Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. On page 12, which is 6 of 12 of the meeting of April 19th, discussion of the block Q, 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth line down, the seller would give, it's 200,000, not 2,000.
Okay, what line are you on?
I'm after discussion and possible improvement of the contract for Block Q, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines down, it says the seller would give 2,000.
Yeah,
That's 200,000.
that's correct.
That is correct.
That's just a little,
Good
few
gracious,
zeros.
Pat. Good job.
All righty. I don't know what happened to our line item numbers on the right side of our packet, but, all right, any more corrections? Madam Clerk, you got that?
Yes, sir.
All right. We're gonna now vote on the amended minutes. Everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. All right. Madam Clerk, have we got a list of speakers?
My sheet is blank, actually.
All right, police report, Chief Dixon. No, wait a minute. Yeah, that's right. Yep, please.
Hiding on the side from you. So there's nothing really exciting in the April report to report. I will say that when I submitted the report, I overlooked page 2. There's a missing page over there. And when I got back to looking at the numbers, I said, these numbers aren't adding up. And so anyway, if you notice in the report that the numbers aren't adding up, it's because there was a second page that was missing. When I realized it, I gave it to Heather, and I believe she's provided you all with copies of that now. So
Yes, sir.
that's my oversight, and I apologize. But nothing really overly exciting on that report. Talk about April, we had Days at the Docks, which was a success. We worked with the Governor's Highway Safety Program and had the seatbelt convincer down there on site. It was down there all day Saturday, and it was a good opportunity to get out there and interact with the people and let them ride it. We had a lot of participation on that thing. So, on top of that, we also ran a Dunkin' booth, and that was also a huge success. A lot of people came out and dunked the chief, and I would tell you, we could not have done that, and I'm not even going to try to list them all. We could not have done it without all the volunteers. And there's some of them in the room tonight, there's some of them listening on Facebook, but if you came out to volunteer and help us with the Dunkin' booth and the seatbelt convincer, we really, from the bottom of our heart, appreciate it. It wouldn't have been the success that it was without you. So, other than that, heading into the summer, we're seeing an increase in people. Just encourage everyone to drive safely. Wear your seatbelts. This includes seatbelts on low-speed vehicles. Watch out for pedestrians and cyclists. I want to remind everyone that the No Pets on the Strand starts May 20th, so just 3 days from now. Tuesday, was that Friday? Is that correct? May 20th, Friday? And that is from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. And that runs until September the 10th. So just keep that in mind. On the operations side with the police department, we're still heading into the summer with our 2 vacancies. And because of that, we've adjusted our schedule, and it is not ideal, but we're making the best out of it we can with what our available resources are. Memorial Day weekend is quickly approaching. So after receiving mostly positive feedback last year, it came up in the last meeting, it was questioned, we've looked at it, we are going to try to run the no left turn lane again at the foot of the bridge on Saturdays.
Good job.
So that'll be, last year we did it from around 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's just during that major congestion. We're planning on doing the same thing again this year, and that'll run through Labor Day weekend, Saturdays only. So that's what we got planned there. One of the last things is, I hate to even say this word, hurricane season starts June 1st. So I'm not even going to go on a monologue. I just mentioned this. Please have your plans ready now. Just go ahead, start getting your plans together beforehand. And then I just want to close on a different note, and this will be my last thing. May 15th in 1962 was proclaimed as National Peace Officers Memorial Day. And National Police Officer Week occurs every year in May, and we're actually in that week right now. It started the 11th and runs through the 17th. Today is the last day of it. The Officer Down Memorial page reports 624 fallen officers in the line of duty in North Carolina alone, with more than 25,000 line of duty deaths across our nation. Here in our own backyard in Brunswick County, we've lost 5 officers in the line of duty. And Bowling Spring Lakes had an officer shot and killed in 2005 during a traffic stop. The Brunswick County Sheriff's Office has had 3 deputies killed dating back to 1908. And then the Assistant Chief of Southport Police Department was killed in 1940 when he was struck in the head with a lead pipe while he was responding to a loud music call. So that's just right here in our backyard. I just wanted to mention those officers that were close and local to us during this Memorial Week. And on behalf of the Holden Beach Police Department, we would like to recognize the brave men and women across our nation who have been killed in the line of duty while protecting our communities and standing for our democracy. That's all I have for the police report. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, I'll be glad to try to answer.
Jeremy, I noticed there was 4 more investigator requested. Is that something that you moved to the Brunswick County Sheriff's Department, or is that just something, again, that without a detective, it just kind of falls off? Yeah,
I won't say it falls off, but it does really kind of stay in limbo I mean, we're already stretched with resources now, so it is just sitting in our queue waiting, basically.
Okay, well, again, I want to thank you guys for all your hard work and the things that you do. Just the golf carts are starting to pick up. There are more and more, and if they ride by my house and I'm out in the yard, I holler, put on your seatbelts. So, some of them, actually, you know, when they do have them on, I'm kind of surprised, but it's, I guess, better than it was last year, but we need some type of, maybe, something put out safety-wise, or, like I said, we've talked about before, to kind of make sure that when the crowd gets here after Memorial Day, it'll be continuous, that they're all aware of that issue.
That's
I
right.
just don't want to see any kids hurt.
We don't either, and we, like I said, we spent a lot of time educating last year. We're going to continue to keep those efforts up this year. And I've actually seen an increase in seat belts and child restraints and everything else. So
Yes, sir.
I think it's working. It's not perfect, but, you know, whether it's low-speed vehicles or motor vehicles, I don't know that we'll ever get to 100% compliance. But that's our goal, and we're going to keep shooting for it.
Yes, sir. Jeremy, thanks again for your
Yes.
support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We're on item number 8, Assistant Town Manager Ferguson, in regards to canal dredging.
Yes, sir. The Canal Dredging Working Group decided that they wanted to pursue a master plan update, particularly because we completed a project in 2019. The engineer for record for that, Right Angle Engineering, with Shane Lippert in the audience, conducted the update. A draft was supplied to the working group prior to their April meeting. There were some that could attend the meeting and some that had the draft supplied via email so they could provide comments. Any of the comments that were minor, mainly Harbor Acres had a question about a shoaling rate, was addressed by Shane for the final. And what you have before you tonight is the final to vote on. Typically, the master plan does come before the Board of Commissioners for the approval. The last one we did was in 2016. So we would need, if you guys want to accept the plan, we would need a motion for approval of the plan. And if you have any additional questions, Shane can answer those for you.
Well, Christie, thanks for answering my questions this afternoon I had on this. If nobody else has any questions, I'd like to make a motion to approve the canal dredging master plan.
Second, anybody? Second. Brian, second. Discussion?
I just would like to understand if we know that we've been doing dredging about every 10 years, is it necessary to inspect, I noticed that there's measurements being recommended every 2 years. It seems that every 10 years or so is when it's dredged. Is it really necessary to do a check every 2 years? Can it be every 3 years? It's just a question.
We typically do that because if we have a hurricane event, it can change things. Plus, if we have bulkheads to blow out, which do happen, there can be shoaling that occurs that affects the flow. So we try to do it every 2 years, and those are the main reasons behind it.
Any more questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's
Thank
unanimous,
you.
Madam Clerk. Thank you, Ms. Ferguson. Mr. Hewitt?
Yes, sir. With the acquisition of the Block Q properties, the issue on what the best use of that property will be has raised, and so what the staff was wondering was perhaps that the best way to do that is to close the portion of Carolina Avenue that is enveloped by the piece of property, the little sliver of property and the main body of it. And so what we are asking to do is see if the board wants to proceed with closing that portion of Carolina Avenue between Quinton and Jordan Boulevard. The process that's involved with that is laid out in the attachment. Pretty much it's a statutorily dictated process, but the first step in that is that the board has to adopt a resolution declaring its intent to close the street and calling for a public hearing. We've provided a draft of that resolution, which is not before you for consideration because it's incomplete, but just to give you an idea of what the process is. So once the resolution is adopted, then there's a month of publishing the announcement. We've got to notice the affected property owners, which in this case is the town itself because they're on both sides of the road. There's a public hearing involved. And then if the board would find it to be not contrary to the public interest, that you would adopt an order closing the street right away, the street itself. And I think the important point to note here is that once a street is closed, the property that is the street basically is split 50-50 and the attaches to the lots on either side of the street. So with that said, because there's real estate involved, in order to make the resolution adequate for adoption, we need to get a proper survey in terms of meets and bounds and not just describe from the intersection to the intersection, because there's going to have to be some deed work done. And so that's a specific that would be necessary in terms of some technical work. One other thought that occurs to me, and the board should be cognizant of this, is that Carolina Avenue is one of our POW bill maintained streets, and upon withdrawal of it from public dedication, we would lose that portion of the funding that attaches to the mileage there. Now, it's only about 300 feet, but I just wanted to make sure that it does decrement the POW bill appropriation should you desire to move forward with that. So that's what I'm asking for, is do y'all want to move forward with that? If you do, I'll need to spend some time and engage with getting a survey done, and then put the effort back to bring the resolution of consideration back for your consideration, the resolution of intent.
David, I think it's important that we move forward, so I'd like to make that motion to move forward with the process to close a portion of Carolina Avenue for Block Q, so we can move forward with the engineering and survey work that needs to be done so we can move forward.
Is there a second? Second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, as a follow-on to that action, and asking for some more to do, once, assuming that this happens, there is it's my understanding that the board wants to proceed with master planning that site, and at this point in time, in order to keep some momentum going, it'd probably be a good thing to engage a consultant engineer to look at the master site plan, because assuming the board does want to close the road, and then there's some subdivision actions that would need to happen, whether it's recombining properties or whatever, those questions on how the property is going to be used would probably be well served by having a consultant engineer on board from as soon as you can, in order to assist with laying out the lot or laying out the property. So I would ask that, or I'd recommend that you that you do that. And if you're going to get a consultant engineer engaged on Block Q for the layout up there, you might as well go ahead and get the same one to do the pier layout up there too, to get a head start on both of those projects at the same time. So that's just my 2 cents and for what the board would like to do with it is.
I would actually say that this is something that we can discuss and make a determination on Friday when we see just where we stand in terms of total money and various priorities.
Well, all I'm talking about is getting a plan together with no appropriations intended.
Was that something we'd have to put out a RFP for, David?
However y'all like to proceed, it's just that the, putting out a RFP is gonna take some time, and it'll probably be about 6 weeks before it'd be ready to be back in front of the board, which I was trying to be anticipatory in moving forward with both of those projects. If y'all wanna tap the brakes a little bit, just realize that there's a process involved. You know, you do have the consultant engineer, a contract with McGill and Associates for the Parks and Rec master plan already, and probably work something out as far as a change order involved there. But if you want to go with a new soup and nuts, it's on y'all.
Christie?
Mine has nothing to do with what he's talking about. I've got people behind me here telling me that they can't hear y'all over the air conditioner, so I was just gonna ask y'all to be a little loud.
Freeze to death. How about if I turn that air conditioner down?
Sounds like
I'm getting hit in the back of the head with airplanes back here telling me to tell y'all to speak up.
What's your pleasure?
David, I got a question.
All right.
Will we be putting the cart before the horse to do anything until we deal with Carolina Avenue? I mean, that may or may not happen. I mean, I think maybe we just sit tight for just a little, let that happen first. I don't think our plans were to do anything major with Block Q in a hurry anyway, but it's just a question. I mean, if we don't close Carolina, we can't really do a plan. It would be a different plan, obviously.
Yeah, I was just trying to get things lined up for, the next curve instead of looking in the rearview mirror and wondering why things didn't happen.
I agree with Brian. I think we get the road process, get it closed, and I personally think it'd be better to go with an RFP. But we can make that decision a little bit further down.
First thing that comes to my mind is between now and then, whatever then is, the land sitting there, what are you gonna let happen there, or what are you gonna control happening there?
We have parking in the right-of-way. Right at the moment, we have parking in the right-of-way, and that's what that's used for.
I clearly understand
Yeah.
that, Ms. Pat, but what I'm telling you is, I've lived here a long time, and I own a little bit of vacant land, and it seems to me like that a lot of my vacant land becomes public land whenever they want to park or drive across it,
As
camp on it, whatever they want to do.
Wasn't there
So-
post and rope or something up on some of that before? Didn't they have ropes and stuff up?
Have you looked at it recently? It's mowed, it's cleared.
Yeah, I know it is.
And you are going to have, you can write this down, I promise you, you're gonna have trucks, boat trailers, and other vehicles driving across and parking on that property, because you don't have no parking or parking meters in the middle of that tract of land. And a four-wheel drive pickup truck can pull a boat trailer with a boat or without it, or whatever, across. I'm just
And
telling you from experience what's gonna happen. Why park where you have to pay when you can drive out and park for nothing in the middle of the track?
then the obvious is to put post and rope up again and/or just, it's going to be a ticketed area because it's not set up for parking at this point. And from what David told us in the past, it needs to have a proper surface to be set up for parking.
Weren't we gonna plan on using it for boat and trailer parking as soon as possible?
But it still needs to be properly set up with a proper base to do it. So that is part of the process that has to happen, is to get down whatever the surface is, and then to mark things. And that wasn't going to happen overnight, and it wasn't going to be for free.
I wasn't saying don't open it up. I was gonna bring up a little later about opening part of that up for boat and trailer parking to see if we could designate it for that. But if you do a plan and we spend money on a plan assuming Carolina Avenue is gonna close and Carolina Avenue doesn't, then what do we do? Where are we at? But
Well,
getting the RFPs,
Well, I mean,
Fine.
I'll chime in that, you know, developing a master plan is not going to happen as quickly as the time frame that the potential closing Carolina Avenue would happen. I mean, we're talking 5 or 6 months is what, you know, that glide slope would be, and the Carolina Avenue would be 3 or 4 months. So they would kind of be running in parallel, but the master plan. But I mean, I'll do whatever y'all want to do.
getting the RFPs is perfectly fine with me, if that's what you wanna do.
Enclose Carolina Avenue. So we can move forward. Go ahead, Mayor.
I'm giving you my forecast and kind of got the message. Doesn't matter, so y'all, whatever you want to do. I'm just, say watch and see what happens. You gotta have a plan, but I'm telling you what's gonna happen.
You tell us what's gonna, well, how's it gonna not happen if, getting a plan, I mean, we gotta do something to keep it from happening. If you say it's gonna happen, we have
Well,
to put
yeah,
something
it's
up.
gonna happen. And I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I'm just telling you they're gonna use it, and I don't blame them, I would too. And, I just, something for you to think about, I guess.
Well, I go back to, I mean, David months ago said that without doing a proper surface, that lot wouldn't be suitable for heavy vehicles to be on. So if people are going to pull in there with heavy vehicles, there may be an issue. I'm sorry, I'm just repeating what, you know, the whole point of we need to have proper surface, particularly for the heavier vehicles. So I think it needs to be, I think there needs to be something put up so that people don't go in there, because the last thing we want to have happen is some getting stuck or something, and there's a problem developed. That wasn't meant to be automatically parking before we got a surface done.
I didn't intend for that to be
I know. No, I know what you're
I'm
saying.
just predicting, and accurately, I'm sure, of what's gonna happen.
But they've been parking boats and trailers there for years.
In the right of way, not in the
They've
middle
been
of the
pulling,
lot.
they pull back up to the hill and they pull out in July the 4th, they're all over the lot. I don't see why we can't make some areas even if it's temporary, for boat and trailer parking, at least for this season.
Well, I don't think anybody's arguing that, to put some gravel down or whatever, but it's gotta be paid parking, it has to be controlled.
Yeah.
If we don't have any control over it, then we're in pretty sad shape as it is, but that wasn't what you said. I mean, did we talk about putting gravel down and opening up some parking there, or did I miss something?
No, and of course, that's.
So then we're gonna have to control that area either way we go, or do something with it.
Is the parking lot make a comment?
I'm just suggesting to be prepared to do something down the road soon, because they are coming.
We are.
Can Jim join into the discussion and make any suggestions, or we got out of line?
He works for us, we tell him what we want, but
Would you like to pipe in? Please?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners. I agree with the mayor, for starters. Number one, I agree with Mr. Murdoch. If you wanted to do something temporary, I would recommend two things. Number one, The two large blocks, I would put no parking signs up. It's the only way you're going to keep people out of there and keep people out of trouble. Second, there's a section, a little strip of land between South Shore and Carolina. That is very, very easy to make diagonal spots for a truck and trailer combination. That could be done at almost no cost. It's pretty much just putting up signs. And that's something that we'd be willing to help with at your leisure. But that would be my immediate recommendation until the other actions that Mr. Hewitt has proposed have completed.
That's all I'm saying. We got signs all around it now in the right of way. So, some, or a lot of those would have to be removed, and that parking lot would have to be somewhat developed for boats and trailers to be able to park on, which is, in my opinion, or some of my opinion, is why we purchased that property. But we either have right-of-way parking or we do something quick, temporary, to provide boat and trailer parking and designate it for boat and trailer parking only would be what I would do, because of the vicinity to the boat ramp, and only allow boat and trailer parking in those spaces. So that makes perfect sense. And then if you've got a portion where you don't want people to park, as I agree with Alan, because I've seen Avenue A and the countless properties that you've owned for years and years and years, people are gonna find a way through there and park on it. So we would have to block it off and enforce it. And that's just what I think. But if we're gonna do something for boat and trailer parking, we're gonna have to put a surface down, because in 1 month's time or a couple weeks' time, you're gonna have a record sitting there pulling everybody that goes in there out, because it's just dead sand once the grass is gone.
I know exactly where you're talking, how many spaces where you're talking about to take the sliver and just make it into
Pull through.
pull
Yes.
through. About how many spaces is that in your estimation? Just all boat and trailer?
I would imagine somewhere in the 15 range, which would make a significant difference to that boat and trailer parking area immediately.
Would it help to put a no parking sign in the middle of the bigger block of Block U? Just so you can't park in there?
I want to interject though, Jim, that consideration or suggestion would perhaps interfere with the way that the existing ordinance reads about on-street parking there on both sides. Isn't there on-street parking on Carolina Avenue?
It would take away from the on-street parking in the right-of-way that we have today. It would remove that and replace it with an off-street lot that could handle about 15 truck and trailer combinations.
Y'all, my point's being
change.
illustrated here with the questions that the commissioners has. That site needs to be master planned for all of these considerations, not just whatever the parking is, but other uses that may go there too, that may be the desire of the board.
I think all we're trying to do right now is figure out if there's a temporary fix for both boat and to keep people from parking in the big areas that are open. We're not denying that there's going to need to be an overall master plan. But if there's a use for pieces right now and a way to keep pieces from being used that we don't want used, we have to fix it now. And I agree that trying to get a section, if it works, specifically for the boater parking is an excellent idea. Right now, we have a lot of the right-of-way being taken up by, frankly, a lot bigger vehicles and trailers than any of us anticipated. It would be more organized and perhaps better use of all of our parking space to have some specific slots for the boat trailers.
And any changes I think we would do to that area in the future, I don't think taking up a parking sign or we're not paving it or anything like that. So I don't think that we're improving the property to the point where it can't be changed in the future.
Well, and I swear, I'm really not trying to be a wet blanket here, but the suggestion on doing straight across pulling there, that does not take into considerations things like turn radiuses of boats and trailers intersecting the travel lane, and I'm about at the limit of my engineering and transportation experience there, but I do know that those are considerations, so I know that the board wants to do something and make a showing and get something done, but I am not sure, or I don't have a lot of confidence that you can do those kinds of things quickly out there that you'd like to do because of those definitive, specific considerations that have to be taken into consideration whenever you're developing a site.
Okay, I guess I have a mental picture of people are parking their truck and boat trailer, coming in South Shore, slanted sliver, and when they pull out, they pull onto the Carolina Avenue. So they come in like this and go out like that. So I don't think it's a turn, I'm confused about the turning radius. It all depends on whether or not there's room with measurement. Is it long enough, deep enough? But
And all of the setbacks that we, for the work that was done by the town staff, was to make sure that the largest fire truck had room to make it around all of those corners. And we did the same test with the team here, specifically for the fire trucks, but also to make sure that the large boat trailers could make it around all of the corners with a 40-foot setback from the corner. So while it is a good point, I think the considerations have already been made.
Well, I beg to differ though, Jim, because it's different from turning a corner with a piece of apparatus, and it differs than when you've got three boat trailers that are 50 feet long and cumulative, parked parallel to one another, and trying to pull out on the road and not take the front of the truck that's next to you off with the rear end of the boat motor.
Just making the spaces wide enough. But, your point's well taken.
We need to have some formal layout done out there, and just going out there and stringing some gravel or coquina out I don't have confidence in our ability to deliver a product that's consumable by the public to use that as public parking, much less for the entire site. Now, we'll do what y'all want to do, but
Are we ready to go to number 12?
Jim, thank you for your help.
Thanks, sir.
We'll be back in touch.
Ms. Ferguson? From talking about problems, now we're going to talk about drinking beer.
That's it. Maybe we'll solve some of that problem. Okay, as previously announced by the town manager, the town of Holden Beach is excited that we are the final destination for the Cycle In-Sea Tour. It's going to go from the mountains to the coast and will end here on October 8th. We're going to have 1,000 cyclists to come that day. We're going to have not only that as the end event, but we're also going to have a kite festival happening on the beach that weekend. And so it's a pretty big deal, and these folks are looking for places to retire along this route that they're coming. So we're excited to have him. Chip Hoffler from Cycle In-Sea North Carolina Amateur Sports is in the audience if you guys have any questions. The police chief, the public works director, and I met on site with him today regarding logistics. They will be camping overnight, but the reason that they're here today is that we have a beer garden request, and all of those have to come before you guys. We've done this before with races, with the Run HB. The way the ordinance is written, you guys have to give approval for each one of them. So they have the same layout as Run HB, and the police chief has not had issues with the beer garden in the past.
Thank you, Christie. I believe we need to make a motion to approve the beer garden for the Cycle North Carolina Mountains to Coast. for October the 8th of this year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christie.
Number 13, Mr. Hewitt,
Yes, sir.
food trucks.
Yes, sir. Requesting the board's input on what you want to do about food truck vendors. Per the board's direction, the staff solicited and advertised for food truck vendors to provide services at the pier property for the period between Memorial Day and Labor Day. We got 2 companies that submitted proposals, and in fact, there was actually a third one that came in late. Those proposals are attached for your review, and we're asking how you wish for us to proceed with those vendors, if at all.
David, do we know exactly where we're going to put them on site, and is there room for more than one at a time?
We've got a general idea of where they might go, but absent having the dimensions of the submittals, we hadn't had an opportunity to marry those up yet.
Because what I've noticed is there's...
And the answer to your second question
Yeah.
is when they would want to go in, we really didn't get a real hard, I want Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 o'clock or anything from these guys. So it may be that between the 3 of them that, they only want 2 hours a day on all different days kind of thing.
The way I read it is the one cuisine one, they're willing to pretty much work the whole thing for lunch and dinner is what they said. And then the days that were given by the barbecue place, when you map it out, you can see they're never available Sundays, Mondays. There's a pattern to it. So, I'm assuming what we want is we want at least one there every day. And if there were some days that had 2, that would be great. So, if that's the case, then the company that is the cruising cuisine, that there said we're prepared to work daily for lunch and dinner, it sounds to me like they're willing to be here from Memorial Day through Labor Day daily for lunch and dinner, and then just pick some days that are consistent for the barbecue place to have a supplement that 3 days a week we have 2, and the other days at least we have 1. If you bring the lobster roll place in on top of it that came in late, you can probably fill in a little bit better.
Then when pigs fly there, the schedule they sent us looked like it was pretty much every day.
No, they are never available on Sundays or Mondays. They are available most Wednesdays. They have a couple Wednesdays that have a commitment. They're available most Fridays. They have a couple days that have a commitment. They're pretty much available every Saturday except for 4th of July weekend. So, you could pick 3 days during the week, I think, that you could ask Pigs Fly to be here, except for the days they already are committed, which isn't that many, and then just have the other one here all the time.
I think that what we're asking for is that one, for the board's review of these submittals and not knowing what we would get back in an RFP in terms of how many we would get. This seems to be a manageable number, at least for the introduction of food trucks to Holden Beach at the pier. So I think that what I'm hearing from you is there's none of these 3 that you wouldn't like to see up there, and as general guidance to us is to see what we can maximize in terms of presence and calendar and space up there. Is that kind of what
Yeah.
I hear?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, with that guidance, I can work with that. part of this is that we did not know what we were gonna get. You know, if we had 100, you know, and it'd been a little more difficult, but, you know, I think that since we do have a limited, response, that it's certainly that we can work with it, and we'll see what we can work out with them, in terms of that. If it's problematic, we'll bring it back to the board.
I do have one question. Do we have to modify the peddling ordinance?
We've reviewed that, and the interpretation from the zoning officer, chief building official, is that no, that it's a recreation-associated amenity, and that the town is exempt from it. We've actually briefed that to the board on 2 different occasions.
So, David, is what you're asking for?
But if you don't want to accept the zoning official's read on it, then I don't know what
No,
I
I'm,
can do for you.
I just don't want it to come back that we get challenged, and it's a simple enough thing to add something about it's prohibited except for vendors approved by the Board of Commissioners. You know, I'm just saying, we've had.
Well, I think that the amendments to the zoning ordinance is a little bit more involved than just putting a codicil in the ordinance, but there's a process that you need to go to. But the zoning administrator has been asked, and that has been illustrated a couple of times.
Okay, do we need to, David, what do we need to do then? Do we need to make a
You don't
motion
need,
to approve it, or
I'm
can we
understanding that this is all okay with the board, and that I should proceed with vigor on engaging these people and maximizing their presence of the ones that are here, unless I'm not perceiving that right.
In simple terms,
Go for
handle
it.
it. Is that what
Yes,
I'm
sir.
hearing?
That's good.
We all can understand that language, all right?
Yes, sir.
And we're through with the trucks.
Yes, sir.
Ms.
Well, I
Ferguson?
got one other thing while we're on the trucks deal, and the property up at the pier. There's some oceanfront campsites that are available, and I know that's probably gonna be part of the same engineering master plan you were speaking of earlier, David. Is that something that we could move forward on, or is that gonna take too much?
I'll speak to that if I may. We talked about that, and we all agreed that the existing campsites on the oceanfront on this side of the fishing pier, the east side, that we wanted to resurrect their livelihood, safety, conditions, and so forth, and move forward. Mr. Hewitt and I followed up on your discussion, and Mr. Evans, according to the discussion Mr. Hewitt and I had, Mr. Evans was looking into that, and we're gonna follow up on that, and everything that you're asking about, it's already been handled. It's being handled.
Cool.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, Mr. Mayor. I just,
All right.
sometimes it's,
Communication.
unless we're told that that's happening, we don't know that it's happening. You just told me it's happening. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Number 14, Miss Assistant Town Manager.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So as you guys were discussing the pier purchase, again, this is a grant that the town asked for a waiver for. The waiver for this one to be able to, you guys to do a purchase and then us apply retroactively for a grant is only valid for this year, and is only valid through September 30th, which means that you would have to participate in this application period if you wanted to participate. However, in diving into the grant, once it came out and was released a couple weeks ago, there are some bullet points that I think that the staff recommendation is that you should not pursue the grant, because there's a difference in strings and anchors, and this one seems to have a lot of anchors with it. If you look at the correspondence page that's in your packet between myself and Brittany Ship, who you guys spoke to on the phone with Pardiff, she is also the representative that handles the state side of this federal grant. And the first bullet there says park boundary, land and water conservation fund boundary, if adjacent property is acquired in the future. So that means if you guys decided to buy any of the adjacent lots, not that that's been talked about, but if you decided to do that at that area, they would draw a federal boundary around it, and that would have to be for recreational purposes, just like this lot that you have. You would not be able to have any mixed use or anything that you wanted to do on that additional land. So that ties your hand there. If you move down to the third bullet from the bottom, permits. Projects that require DOT, FERC, FEMA, Army Corps, or other state required permits such as CAMA, they are required to be in hand prior to the application submission. Since we don't know everything that will be entailed permit-wise that you may want to do with development there, there's no way that you can supply them with any additional permits that you may get in the future at this point. It's my understanding that if anything changes with the scope of what you plan to do, that not only the federal government, but state government, since they have a hand in this, have to agree with what you agree to, and that can be difficult. But probably the final clincher for staff was last Monday. There was a hurricane conference at the county. Several of the department heads attended, and the state representatives from the Department of Public Safety were there. Since they were there, I asked them to please come visit. They're the ones that handle our FEMA administration of grants. So the FEMA money goes through them at the state to administer. I asked them to come look at our final project. David and I took them out on the beach, and as we approached the pier, I talked about this grant, and we told them, okay, so the understanding is feds do not pay feds. So we need to paint this scenario. If a major storm hit the island and the pier or the pier house was destroyed, we would potentially be FEMA eligible under Cat G recreational facilities. But feds don't pay feds. If we accept a grant with federal boundaries on it and they have a federal deed restriction on us, would we lose that money for FEMA eligibility? And he said we probably wouldn't touch it. He said it would change depending on who's in charge, but he would feel leery about you guys accepting that because they can't guarantee that they would give you money back if it was destroyed. Same thing with sand in front of there for sand projects. So I think based on those aspects that you guys have a lot to think about with considering this, and that it's probably not the best grant for the town, for the $500,000 that you would possibly get.
It's your recommendation we not pursue.
It's my recommendation not to pursue.
Move that we follow the assistant town manager's recommendation and not pursue this grant.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Technically, you don't have to have a motion, you don't have to have a second, you just do no action. But we have a motion on the floor and a second on the floor. So now you're open for discussion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
We're on page 2 of the agenda. Discussion and possible action on Ocean Boulevard West right-of-way. Some of you in the room are familiar with this issue that has been ongoing since Hurricane Hazel recovery. The town became a town in 1969 on Valentine's Day, but the problem has been existing since Hazel departed and the state of North Carolina relocated the street. And back after Hurricane Hazel, and oftentimes houses were rebuilt about where they thought their property used to be. Some houses are across property lines and so forth. Most of that's been corrected through the years, with old houses being torn down, moved away, and so forth. and better surveying and town ordinances and so forth. But today, as you go west down Ocean Boulevard and you approach the area of Harbor Acres, the state hard surface is not properly located. There is a discrepancy in the boundary lines of some of the oceanfront lots in that area versus the second row lots. Simply meaning that in some cases there's more space between the second row lot, southern property line, and the oceanfront lot, northern property line. The distance is wider than the street right-of-way. Follow that? All right, so rather than a 60-foot right-of-way, there might be a 63-foot right-of-way, or a 60.02,000. All these weird numbers, as it's not properly located. Tom Morgan was the surveyor for the town of Holden Beach whenever the water system was put in. And in my opinion, he's the most knowledgeable person about this subject. And he has since gone to work for the state of North Carolina in Raleigh and has since retired and decided to stay there. So he is in the Raleigh area and not here to help. The second most knowledgeable person that I have talked to about this is a surveyor, and I talked with him as late as 4 o'clock today, trying to discuss options and how to deal with this, because we all can agree, I think, that all the people that own second row lots and all the people that own oceanfront lots in this area of concern, no one wants to give up an inch or two of their property or any of their rights that they currently enjoy. So I think we can agree on that. Also, I think we can agree we don't want to get into any lawsuits, so Mr. Green might enjoy some business about who gets to do this or who gets to do that in regards to this problem. I would like to turn the page of history back to about in the 80s, and maybe it was about 1990, and I know Gay Atkins is in the room, and maybe some others that maybe can help shed the light on this, because Gay, I know you live in the area I'm getting ready to talk about. The area from Ferry Road back this way to somewhere about 122 or so Ocean Boulevard East, there is a change in the width of the right-of-way along there. And my company built the houses at 136, I believe it's 136, 38, 42, 44 East. And the problem came to a head whenever we applied for permits on those lots. They weren't all built at the same time. But it's very similar in the fact, because of the right-of-way was staggered and the location of the hard surface, the town worked with the property owners along there and agreed to a line that the town would use tied to all the information that was of record. But the town agreed to govern the construction of the town's properties, not the town personally owned, but the town's properties that the town had jurisdiction over, the oceanfront lots and the second row lots, trying to agree to a working line to be used for the setbacks, so that all the houses would be in a line and not snaggletooth back and forth. And also, some of those lots in that area were at that time marginally buildable, and maybe the next door lot was. It was a real problem. We have a real problem down in the Harbor Acres area. We have this year, a lady that had a house, an older house, built on the second row in Harbor Acres, that she was set back further from the ocean than her neighbors, and the house got damaged in the hurricane, and because of the regulations the way they are, she could not do what she wanted to do to upgrade her house back to normal and so forth. She had to go through the standard process as outlined in our regulations to do limited work on her house. If the town had had a working understanding of agreeing to these setbacks down there, similar to what the town agreed to at Ocean Boulevard East, there would be no problem. So all this mumbo jumbo that I'm telling you about history and what the town's done down here to resolve the problem, I'm suggesting that maybe the town look into the past and come up with a solution for these property owners in the Harbor Acres area. When I talked to the surveyor this afternoon at 4 o'clock-ish, he pointed out that there's one lot down there on the ocean front that there are 3 survey stakes in a row that are supposed to represent that person's corner. You got me? So which one do you want? This one, or this one? Well, I guess it's whichever one works to your favor, you see. But if the town had agreed to and was working with an agreed to process through that area, we wouldn't have these debates and concerns. So what I would suggest, and I don't know what the process is, maybe Mr. Attorney can help us, but I would suggest that either Mr. Hewitt and staff or some committee or commissioners or whatever you want to do, to formalize some action to begin to solve this problem for those property owners in that area so that this problem can go away. It's not going to hurt anybody. I've looked at it, talked about it, and everyone I've talked to just simply wants a resolution to it. And just simply to agree to a theoretical line that would not interfere with any legal rights of anybody as far as transferring their properties. No lawsuits would come out of it. It's just a way of processing applications for our permits for the town. And that's as simply as I know how to say it. Those of us that have been around would be willing to help work with that. But it would make life simpler for some of those property owners down there. And that's essentially what I would ask, that the town set forth a process to seek a remedy for this continuing problem that's been a problem since 1955. It's probably time to do something by now. And I guess I would, to try to speed through this thing, I would like to ask, with the commissioner's permission, a directive to be given to the town manager to come back with some suggestions. And I would follow up by recognizing and agreeing that this September, whenever the bike paths and the resurfacing project is completed, then we can really more readily see what we are working with and what the problem is. But until everything's in place from that project, we can be talking about it and having a discussion about it rather than waiting and then start. You know, does that make sense what I'm saying? Okay. So I guess in simple terms, I would like for you to allow me to ask Mr. Hewitt to make note of this and be putting forth some kind of mental plan to be ready to move in that direction sometime later on this year. We're not looking at spending any money or anything. It's just a matter of trying to get a formal plan to follow up and make this problem go away. I don't think there's anybody in the room that has any monetary gain from it. It's just trying to solve a problem for the property owners down there.
I don't think anybody have a problem with going ahead and trying to do that.
Yeah.
Help these owners straighten it out, so.
Yeah. Okay, if there's no more questions or discussion on that, anybody got anything you want to talk about? All right. Let's go to number 16. Thank goodness COVID is less threatening, in my opinion. I know we have at least one doctor in the room, don't we, Dr. Dyer? And we have another doctor in the room, Dr. Caldwell, and we have the other, we got a baby doctor here. Anybody else want to raise your hand and be a doctor? We all hopefully can agree that the threat to society and one's life is much less maybe now than it was in recent months. We have been operating in this town hall under the emergency COVID guidelines that's set forth, and there has been concern of mine and others that it's probably time to lift the restrictions on our town properties and the way they're being used under these COVID guidelines. And I would like to suggest, as your emergency manager, that we, as of June the 1st, lift those regulations unless someone in the room has reason to suggest that we don't. And I'm asking the audience as well, because we've got doctors in the audience. Any discussion or comments? All right, Madam
Being
Clerk.
the emergency manager, is that not something that you can do?
Yes, I can do that.
Let's do it.
So, but I was wanted to make everybody aware, and Madam Clerk, if you'll get all that in order for me to sign and so forth, June the 1st, we'll lift those. All right, next item on the agenda is public comments on general items. This is an opportunity for anybody in the audience to raise your hand, be recognized, come to the podium, give us your name and address, talk about anything you want to talk about. I'm sorry, Mr. Jerry, but there's a lady behind you and got her hand up. Miss Atkins, if you will, come to the podium.
My name is Gay Atkins. I live at 129 Ocean Boulevard East, Holden Beach, 28462. Can't hear me now? Since town hall is going to change and we're out of the emergency COVID, is there any way in the building department that we can go back and go in and get the file? I understand somebody walked out with files once, and that it's supposed to be this is the building, our file with our building, our houses in them.
I understand what you're talking about.
Okay,
but I
all right.
don't
Well,
know
you're
about
looking at me like,
walking out
what?
the file.
And so now I understand, well, we've been going through this for months now, that I made a call 6 months ago. I still don't have the papers I asked for because they have to be emailed to us. Can we go back and hope that we've all got honest in the last 6 months and that we can go in and get a folder and look at it and have it copied like we used to? Huh? And can we?
I don't know, Mr. Evans isn't here, and I'm not sure I understand.
We can't get anything out of the building department.
I don't think that had anything to do with COVID. I think that was to do with the
It
files
didn't.
having things taken from them. So now I think, from what I understand, Abby has to go through it with you and make copies. I
And
don't think that was
email it to
COVID.
us, but we never get them. Have you been in the last 6 months to get anything out of the building department?
I personally have not. My staff may have.
Well,
I'm sure.
I'm sure had a headache when they finished. It's awful. And it was so easy just to go in and get what you needed on listing a home or a homeowner call, have it copied, 25 cents a copy, and walk out with that. Now, I don't know who it was that walked out with files. If you had no papers in your hands when you got there, looks like somebody would have noticed you walked out with papers in your hands.
I don't know how to answer. I understand your question, but I don't know how to answer that. I don't know the history of it or anything. I would suggest that we'll ask Mr. Evans about it when he gets back.
Well, I hope, and it takes forever to get something out of the building department. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Jerry?
Jerry Baker Builders, 124 Salisbury Street, and I just have about 4:40 this afternoon. I went to the building department here to find out that Tim is not doing any more inspections this week until Monday. And I don't think that you can do that. I think we have to have an inspection within 48 hours of it being requested. And I understand he has COVID, but people have rentals, and if I don't get an inspection before this weekend, then they're going to lose more likely a rental because they don't have a pool as advertised. So I just want y'all to think about, addressing that and doing something to get us inspections, but, within a reasonable amount of time, not Monday. And today's Tuesday. That's all I have, please.
All right, thank you, sir. Right back corner.
Hey, Drew Sellers, I own Sunset Slush, 111 Jordan Boulevard, and just talking about the food trucks, I heard you said there was 3 applications. We applied, our name wasn't mentioned, so the only email we got back was an out-of-office email, and we even called to make sure that it was going to be through, because we did it on May 3rd. So I just wanted to make sure you checked that and make sure there weren't other ones that got lost.
No, I received the email, Drew, but it was not stipulated that you wanted to
That
do
was
a
a
food
different-
truck. The email that I got from you was that you wanted to do the same arrangement that you had out on the beach.
No. That was a different one. This email, we applied May 3rd, Heather at HB Town Hall.
Yeah, I didn't get yours. I actually said it was curious because you guys said you wanted to, so.
Okay, well, that means,
Send it back to us. I mean,
Okay.
the other one was late.
sounds good. Yeah, I sent on May 3rd, I have the copy. I got an out-of-office email returned from it, so.
Yeah, that's really, I
Okay.
made that comment because
Yeah.
you guys had responded right to me.
All right, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, thank you.
And I got the one from you about wanting to do what he's doing at Ocean Island.
And, yeah, and if, we can talk about it another day whenever you want to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Marty Arrowood, 114 Shrimp Street. I just want to, I don't know if y'all have known, Mr. Jeff Conway passed away Sunday. He was one of the first people I met in the beach in 1988. He had a store down at the corner of Jordan Boulevard and Brunswick Avenue. It's where the pylons are. And it was just the nicest place to be. I think he cut grass forever down here. His daughter is Dee by Dee's by the Sea. And she's, I think, president of the Holden Beach Merchants Association. But he did pass away quietly in his sleep. He had been sick on Sunday. Don't know any of the details. I do know, I think Wednesday is visitation. But I just wanted to bring that up because he was kind of an ambassador to this beach when I first got here in the 80s. So thank you.
That visitation is at White's Funeral Home and Supply. Charlie.
Hi, so first time I'm attending the meetings, thought I'd meet you all, find out how this all goes, what kind of stuff we discuss.
We hope you come back.
Oh, I will. I will. I wanted to ask a question of for the police department. We have 2 vacancies. I wanted to know how long those vacancies have been in existence and why we're having such a problem filling those vacancies. I know that there are a lot of ads out there for certainly Brunswick County, the sheriff's office, things of that nature. But I'm kind of curious as to why we're having our issues with those vacancies. I think these guys do a great job out there. You never hear much of anything, which is a tribute to what they do and how well they do it. But if they're understaffed, I suspect that's going to become much more of an issue, especially when the crowds start to come in. I think running short in the department, and certainly the hours these guys are probably putting in, they probably could use the help. So I'm kind of curious as to why we're having such a hard time finding people to fill those vacancies here. I'd like our PD to stay local, obviously, so I know there have been some different things done on different islands, but I think it's pretty important in an island situation that we have a PD that represents the island. So I guess that's my question to you, Chief.
I have to get permission to pass this off. Commissioners, do you want the chief to respond? Normally, whenever we have, it doesn't get into debate or discussion or process, procedure restricts that. We have to get special permission to do it. Commissioners?
If he's comfortable answering, I would leave it to Jeremy if he's comfortable.
Chief, you want to respond?
I don't mind responding. I don't know if I have the correct answer or not. I think it's not just a problem with the Holden Beach Police Department, unfortunately. Law enforcement across the nation is seeing a shortage. That shortage right now is an average of about 20% is what I'm hearing from other agencies. And it doesn't matter whether it's agencies that have 2,000 officers or agencies like us that have 10. So it's a national problem that we're facing. The classes in BLET now are much smaller than they were. You know, when I went through, we had I think it was 15 or 16 in my class. This last class that we went to and recruited from, there was 9. So, you know, the classes now are much smaller. It's just, there's a lot of things going against us. You know, it's just as a nation. And then, you know, there are, you know, this is a budget meeting, or this is not a budget meeting, so I'm not going to get into that. But, you know, you got other agencies that pay more. You got other agencies that have different toys. The sheriff's office has a lot of toys, things like that. So that's, you know, I could go on, and if you want to have that discussion in the office, I'd love to talk to you about it. But I guess that's kind of where I'll go with it as far as the answer for this. No, sir. No, sir. Right now, we are budgeted for for 10 officers. We have 0 applicants for those 2 positions that are open right now, and we have been advertising those since. Gosh, I'm gonna say October. I may be off on that a little bit. So around October, November, something like that.
No,
Thank you.
they're not.
It's a combination of.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Anyone else having? Yes, sir.
Keith Smith, 105 Durham Street. Just got a couple of things that I want to discuss. As far as the pier goes, obviously I was a big proponent of that. The second part after the purchasing was the development. I'd like to see, or my recommendation would be, that I believe you had a couple of commissioners that kind of formed a task force as far as, you know, how to go forward and look at the engineering reports and see what's feasibility and all of that. I'd like to see the same tenacity as far as a master plan, kind of what the town manager spoke of, as far as how we can really make that an iconic, family-focused cultural center. I know you don't think of culture much when you think of piers, but as I look back over my life, that's where I developed a lot of my growing up conquered fears. I don't know if you remember or not, but I remember walking over the water and looking 20 feet down at water and kind of figuring out how to conquer that fear by looking forward. And so conquered that, playing video games, shooting pool, got better at pool at the pier than probably I should have. Listened to a lot too much AC/DC. But so I'd like to really kind of look at that because we have a real opportunity because it's a blank slate. And so instead of just kind of piecing it together, kind of come up with a master plan. What does it look like 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Also, the engineering report, I may have missed this, I come in late, is the engineering report of public record on the underwater piling, has that been returned yet? I know it's not a question, but once it becomes available, I'd like to see that because I think it would answer a lot of questions that other people we opposed it from before. I don't want it to be time that we pick on Tim Day, but I do want to talk about the permitting process. With a town of less than 1,000 full-time residencies, it takes entirely too long to get a permit. Just in our deal, when we had the king tides, we received some flooding. And so, and I'm not blaming Tim, obviously, but it may be a time where, as far as budgeting goes, I know that's coming up, where we can look at getting some more resources there. We waited, for us personally, it cost us 2 weeks of renting a house extra than what it should have because we just kind of sat and waited because, they were busy. And so, I've been in smaller towns, been in larger towns too, but for the tight-knit community feel we have, it does seem like it takes a long time. And when I was kind of sharing my story, I heard additional horror stories of it taking months to get permits for decks and things of that nature. Just seems kind of odd to me. So I think the way we'd look at that is maybe adding some budget dollars to assist in this department. Like I said, it costs us, 2 weeks in property rental. So that's my two things. Thanks.
Thanks, sir. Anyone
Thanks,
else want to speak about anything you want to speak about? All right. Mr. Town Manager, Mr. Hewitt.
Yes, sir, I'll be very brief. I only have 2 items to discuss tonight. Shane actually got out of here before he gave a status after the canal dredging plan update on Seagull Street. I understand they were setting grade stakes today, and if anybody's in development work, as soon as most of the time those grade stakes aren't there very long before the bulldozer comes in and asphalt's laid down. I'm going to forecast that if they don't start in there at the end of the week, certainly they should be on site with materials and stringing that stuff down the road the beginning of next week. So certainly by the end of next week, that road should be paved, is what I'm anticipating. Regarding the pier, I actually just got the diver's inspection, and looking through it very briefly here at the high points, there's some 25 pages to it, but the looks like the executive summary says observed conditions, and I'll read verbatim, bear with me. The timber piles associated with the fishing pier structure are in overall fair condition. The engineer's manual describes fair as all primary structural elements are sound, but minor to moderate defects or deterioration is observed. Localized areas of moderate to advanced deterioration may be present, but do not significantly reduce the load-bearing capacity of the structure. Repairs are recommended, but the priority of the recommended repairs is low. Table 1 summarizes the conditions observed during the inspection, and that table has a cost associated with it of $116,000. So there's more to it than that, I'm sure, but looks like that in answer to the state treasurer's question, I think that there's some relative assurance that the town has not bought a lemon.
Anything else?
Can we get a copy of that?
Yeah, yeah,
Just literally?
I mean,
Yeah.
the question came up and it's got a ding from Fran.
Thank you, Dave.
All right. Mayor's comments. Yeah, we did have a hurricane emergency planning meeting up at Odell Williamson Auditorium on the Brunswick Community College campus, involving all of the parties that get involved with emergencies for this area, federal, state, and local. It was a well-attended meeting. Personally, I didn't learn a whole lot of new stuff, but it brought back a lot of important things that need to be brought up and reminded all of us to be on guard. We will have meetings and notifications and follow-ups as necessary to help this island be prepared again this year. I guess the biggest natural news that I've heard in the last few days is about our bear on the west end. And
It was right behind my house.
well, I would just like to say that's not the first bear behind that's been on Holden Beach.
Bear behind, okay, Mr. Morgan.
I thought that was pretty good.
Off the cuff.
We have had bears here before. Yeah, ARE. Yeah. But we have had various wildlife here on the beach, alligators and so forth. So it's always interesting to see what's visiting us. I am concerned about the high tides that we're having more and more every year, it seems like. And we all know about what's being said about temperatures rising, water tables rising, and so forth and so on. We just have to deal with it. It's not just here, it's everywhere. It sure makes the marshes pretty whenever they glisten over with water and the birds flying and so forth. But I would simply say, the bottom line, that I would encourage all homeowners that are in areas that are prone to these excessive high tides, that whenever you leave town or whether you're here, you should always have your ground level properties such as golf carts, fishing gear, tools and that kind of thing, have it elevated, because we now no longer can just wait for hurricane season or a king tide to flood your property. Just be mindful of that as you store things on your concrete slab or wherever on the ground level. We have a volunteer luncheon coming up. Is it 22nd? 27th. That's, how many, what is that, a week from Friday? Week from Friday at 12 under the picnic area for all the volunteers, for all the committees and boards that have participated in helping make Holden Beach as wonderful as it is. And does anyone need to contact you, Christy?
This Friday.
Okay. If you have an interest in coming, contact Christy and get your name on so we can have you a bite to eat or munch on or whatever. And again, thanks to all the volunteers for past and present and future. Oceanfront homeowners, as we have spent a lot of time, we the staff have spent a lot of time on the oceanfront in recent months with all the sand project. It's an annual problem when people, it's a wonderful thing for people to paint their houses and do renovations and replace pickets and so forth. But it's the same old story again this year. House numbers are not being replaced. And that sounds like a small issue. Well, I got house numbers on my street side. Well, that's exactly right. But if your child's drowning and you're out on the beach and you want help, and you call rescue squad, help my son or my daughter's drowning. Well, where are you, sir? I don't know, I'm next to the house. You got to have it so the emergency people can find you and where you can identify where you are. You might be a renter or you might be a day tripper, but those numbers on the ocean side of the house are critically important. Police officers, if somebody calls and says there's somebody breaking in the house at so-and-so, I see them from down here on the beach, I'm walking my dog. Well, I don't know what the number of the house is, but it's pink and whatever. that doesn't help. The police officer needs to know where to go. So please encourage your neighbors, your friends, and yourselves to put house numbers on your ocean side of your oceanfront houses. I think overall the island looks great. I think we're doing a lot of good things. I think the community's headed in the right direction. It always makes me feel good to go to these events where people are coming from other places, such as the emergency meeting we just came from. It's almost always someone comes up and says, Holden Beach is a wonderful place. We admire the way your town is takes care of itself and takes care of its business, and that makes me proud to be part of it. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've just got a few comments. I've had several calls about the house that's burnt on Ocean Boulevard West. I talked with, even though he's sick, he did answer my call yesterday, and I inquired about getting it removed, and he said there had been a permit issued for demolition. And as I rode to the meeting tonight, there's a D9 Trackco excavator sitting in front of that house. So that's a real good sign that thing is gone. Because it's dangerous, and it, it's in an eyesore. But it looks like that's getting resolved, which was really good news to me that they are moving forward. The days at the docks, man, that was fun, and my kids had a ball, Duck and Jeremy. It was, I think, a big success all around. There might not have been quite as many people, because it was kind of cool, but it was still a great event, and it's wonderful to have people come and visit Holden Beach. As far as our staff, Christy, working on those grants and the dredging plan, thanks for all that hard work. Heather, thanks for your work on the light ordinance. Like I said, we're going to have to come back and do some more work on that. Jeremy, again, the dunk tank, that was cool. And Frank, your work on getting the pier parking spaces done, man, that was great. You spent a lot of your probably personal time too out there, but it really helped get that parking area uniform and neat, and that's much appreciated. Chris and his staff also for getting the rest of the parking lot together so you could go out there and do your work putting the stripes in. So it was a great effort by our town staff for everything that they did in that area. Being on the ocean front, Saturday morning, right after the sun come up, they came and got, I believe, the next to last section of pipe. They floated it up and seemed to haul it to the east, which I thought they were going to Florida, but it got moved. And then Sunday morning, about sunup again, the last set of dredging pipes were removed from the beach. So our beach is, I guess, back to normal. Things are starting to look good. The water's relatively clear, except right up close to the shore. But if we could get rid of some of this wind that we seem to be having every day, it would help a whole lot. Got a lot of calls about parking too. This is a work in progress. Jim and his guys do a great job. I've got to hand it to them. It's just, we're going to have bumps in the road. We knew we were, and we're going to address them as we go. And I just appreciate the hard work that you and your staff have done and try to explain to people what's going on. And Jeremy, with your staff being helpful also. But other than that, it looks like not far from, here we go, rental season for everybody. I've got my family fights over who gets what week, but I hope everything goes good for everybody that has their houses rented. But that's about it.
Mr. Brown?
I got a couple comments. I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna come over and stand just like y'all. Okay, I'm just a commoner, that's it. 2 or 3 brought up about the building inspection department. What we have there, we have a cluster. I say you call an ace and a spade a spade. Okay? I go in there last week, 4/20. Okay? I go in there just to turn in an inspection sheet to get some insulation checked. open the door, here's the sticker, be back at 8. Now, this is 4:20. Now, I'm a little old dumb country boy, I don't know much, okay? But I look right here and I see 2 of the employees' vehicles parked there. But they couldn't come out, you see, and take that inspection form. I said, okay. So I come back in at 8 o'clock the next morning. The sign's been changed to 8:30. We'll return at 8:30. Okay? So what people are pissed off about it. There's no other way to do it. Okay? They're tired of being drug around. Folks calling about this and about that and getting the runaround. Look, Bo, we just a step or two above Mayberry here. That's why we love it so much. Nice little quiet town. But we don't deserve the treatment that's going on there. You understand? If you say anything, you're scared you're going to be retaliated. Hey, that ain't a damn inspector to me. It's not a building inspection department. You understand? Now, I'm with you. You understand? Now, the chips fall the way they may, but David, that's your job. We told you a year and a half ago to straighten it out. Now, if we don't see some headway and some things change around here, we're going to start with you, okay? We're going to clean it out, okay? It's been enough of it, and it's been going on long enough, okay? I'm standing here on the 2 feet God gave me, okay? But I've had enough of the bullshit. I'm tired of people calling me, telling me this, that, I can't get this, I can't get that, and it's all a bunch of crap. You walk in there, I would like for each and every one of you just to walk in down there. Okay? When you go in, you go to a little area about that table in the middle. Okay? Glassed off here. You got a door here. Shutting it off there. Okay? Now, to make matters worse, you got a little sliver of glass in that doorway, but that's papered off. You don't get to see nobody. I've never been in a building inspection department where you get to see everybody. You understand? It's been a lie, and it's time for it to stop. Okay? If you can't stand up for your own self and your town, what kind of people are you? You understand? So get up and let your voice be heard. Okay? That's what I'm getting. Get up and let your voice be heard. Okay? Tim's been inspecting for the last 3 or 4 days and had COVID. So David, you sent him home today. In the morning, you need to call him and put him back there and put him to work. He can stay in his truck. Okay? But we need an inspector. Okay? So that's what I got to say. It had to be said.
Mr. Murdoch, you want to follow that?
Nah, I want to say that we've heard what you said loud and clear, and we appreciate y'all coming out. And when you get up and speak, we take what you say and we try to do something about it. So with that being said, there were 3 comments at least tonight about the inspection department, so we will see what we can get done about that issue. I'm a contractor here on the beach. I have been for 20 years or more probably. I've thoroughly have enjoyed working and building here. We, up until just a little while ago, only had 2 people in that department and an in and out administrator. Tim Evans wears a lot of hats on the island, and he's tasked with a lot of things to do that doesn't necessarily even concern inspections or getting permits or anything like that. Getting a camera permit, for instance, is a 21-day process at minimum, like it or not. That's if you have all of your paperwork in a row. And the paperwork alone, just to turn in a permit, is a miserable process in itself. And if you're new to it, or you don't have anybody to help you, it's really hard to get through that process. I'm not gonna deny that at all. We have a really hard time with it, and we've been doing it for a long time. It's not easy, and it's not a streamlined, and it doesn't go from to A to Z very quick, usually ever. So we've had a ton of building on the island in the past couple of years. They are overworked. They need some help. If they took the time to answer everybody's question as they came in, they wouldn't be able to even do an inspection, because there would be people asking questions the whole time that they were working. So in their defense, what we currently have over there is a mess, and they do need some help. And we are in the process, I believe. We've hired another person to go over there, and hopefully this will improve very quickly. Jerry, I'm in agreement with you. We shouldn't have to wait from Tuesday till Monday morning to get an inspection. You have people, and I've had clients that I've had to leave moving trucks in the driveway waiting to get an inspection and a CO in hopes that they can move their stuff in for the weekend, and we've all been through it as contractors over here. I feel your pain on that one. I think we should be able to get a temporary or interim person to do those inspections within a reasonable time frame, because life goes on. Really don't wish any ill will on Tim. I mean, he's sick right now, and the man's not even in the room. So I don't like to talk about people when the person that we need to talk about is not even here. And I hope that he gets better, and I hope he's able to do an inspection tomorrow. But if he's sick, he's sick. And I wouldn't advise making him do that, but we could call somebody that could. That's really all I have to say about that. I mean, it's a problem. It's a hard process at best, and I'm with Gerald in a lot of ways that we have to do something about it, and we'll definitely try to make it better. But you go back to Mayberry, there were times on this island when there wasn't 2 houses a month built, and now there's 50. So it's been a boom time with not a lot of help also. So, and this is the time of year everybody's frustrated. Memorial Day's coming up, renters are coming, and everybody wants to get their stuff done all at one time. And some of it would be, as in my case in the past, you get busy and it's just poor planning. But we hear you loud and clear. I'm glad every one of you showed up, and I love to hear what everybody has to say. And believe me, we all do. Jim, I'd like to thank you a lot for the effort in the parking. I know people have complained about, I paid and I still got a ticket. I've had people like, well, what are we supposed to do? I tried to address construction workers in particular. I've had a couple in the past week, workers for fellow contractors, get tickets. They didn't have a choice of where to park. So if they tell you, or there ought to be some kind of provision made to identify those workers where they don't get a ticket, because when you're building in a 50-foot lot and you look 200 feet in either direction, there is nowhere to park. And we can't afford to have 1 or 2 vehicles park on a job site when you need 6. And frankly, sometimes 1 vehicle takes up the whole place with your Bobcat or whatever else you got on the job. That's very frustrating too. I don't want to see the construction workers and the grass cutters and all that stuff getting tickets for actually trying to come over here and help people get their services done. So we need to work on that too. I know we're in a learning curve here, but I don't want that to continue to be an issue. Nor do I want people that paid for parking to get a ticket. You know, when they have proof on their phone that they paid and then somehow it didn't work, the system. Jeremy, thank you and your staff. I know we're getting ready to get busy. I know you're understaffed, and just like he brought up, and I know personally that the person that we were looking for the police department went elsewhere because of money. And who wouldn't? You're a kid, you're getting out of class, you're getting out of school, you've been trained. They're gonna go where it's either where they feel the most comfortable, or where they're gonna get paid the most. I mean, it's just what anybody else would do. So we do have to look at that from a budget standpoint. But it is a nationwide shortage problem. I would agree that nobody wants to be a police officer this day and time. And we applaud you for doing that. Our town staff tirelessly works getting things done, so thank all of you. The events that we've had so far this spring have been really successful. The plant sale at my construction company, they had a great turnout. It was awesome. The ladies they came in, they did their thing, they cleaned up. We didn't even know they were there. And from what I understand, they have one of the best plant sales that they ever had. And so I really enjoyed them coming up for that. Day at the docks, all that stuff's been great so far. The weather's been awesome, and we're gonna have a big year. We got a great beach strand out there. It's leaving in paper bags with shark's teeth and seashells, but piece by piece, but they're all smiling. I saw a lady come across the beach and had her shirt rolled up. You couldn't have got another shell in it. But people are obviously enjoying that big old wide beach strand out there right now. So thanks for everything, guys. I appreciate you coming out.
Dr. Dyer?
I like to say that Dock Days was successful. Like to see a little bit more vendors, but I know that's coming back from COVID. But it's a beautiful day, and it was nice to see everybody out enjoying it. I want to thank the staff. The work they've done on the pier since we purchased the pier, it looks nicer, it's cleaner. I think it's good to let people know we are working on it. Some stuff is going to be temporary. We got a lot of work to do with master plans, things like that. Black Q, seeing that bush hogged, it looks so much better. Looks going to look great for the renters coming in, and I think people can see that we are trying to get things done. Ask people to still bear with us with parking. I know for a fact Jim was out there one morning at 7 o'clock digging holes, so he's got a hands-on approach. We're going to work out the bugs. I think it's started off well, and just bear with us while we get that straight. I just want everybody to have a safe holiday. We got people starting to come in. Slow down. Look out for people crossing the street. And thank you, Jeremy, and your staff. I know y'all going to have to work hard with the hours and everything, but we do appreciate everything all the officers and everybody does, and all the staff. Thank you.
Ms. Pat?
I appreciate seeing everybody starting to come back. I hope you can talk to neighbors and keep up. We have an audience because it really does make a difference. I'm going to thank the staff in advance of season. You've been doing a great job all year, but in advance of season, I'm thanking you because it's going to be crazy this year. For those of you who are interested, we do have a budget workshop on Friday morning. If you want to come and listen to discussion and wrangling about how to pay for everything that we hope to do, I encourage you to come in and see how we can work through everything. Everybody have a good Memorial Day.
All right, thank you. What time is that meeting, Madam Clerk? 9 o'clock Friday morning. Okay. I failed to mention something a minute ago, if I may, bear with me. I got a letter from Heather Ramsey in regards to Tourette Syndrome Awareness Day, which is June the 4th. Many cities across the country are declaring that Tourette Syndrome Awareness Day, and I have been asked to declare that for the town of Holden Beach. And if there's no objection, I don't know any reason why we couldn't do that. It's a terrible, terrible problem, health problem to have. Any commissioners want to make a comment about it? Do you mind if I sign that?
Sure.
All right. Okay, I'll do that. And is there anything else to come before the board? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, please.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you all for being here. We are adjourned.